I've just finished the hardest exams of my life, and let me just bring you guys up to speed. I've spent the last 6 years in med school, and after jumping through all those hurdles, there was just one last exam standing between me and becoming a doctor. Now you can imagine, with everything being right at my fingertips, I was feeling super motivated, but also super stressed. I was at the home stretch, the last sprint, the last quarter, and I just wanted to finish. So let's cut back to about a month before my exam starts. So at this point, I was on the last rotation for my hospital placement. Now, if you guys have seen my 1,000-hour study video, then you guys know that I used to really throw myself at studying. Sometimes a bit too much. But this time, I didn't want to burn out. The hard thing about being in final year was there was always a never-ending amount of tasks to do. You'd have to apply for jobs, sit for a situational judgment exam, sit for a prescribing exam, and then start thinking about sitting for finals. So during this time, there were just two things on my mind. One, doing as many practice questions as I could, and two, practicing the clinical exams with my friends as often as I could. So I had my work really cut out for me, and it was tough. After this many years of sitting exams, I was definitely exhausted. Sometimes just the thought of being able to call myself a doctor helped me keep going. I didn't want to mess up. I didn't want to fail, and I didn't want to resit. I don't think I could handle that kind of stress after 6 years of hard work. So I just kept going. And my routine started to look like getting up, eating, studying, sleeping, and then repeating that cycle again and again. I started off my exam season with some practical exams. Now I was meant to sit this exam at a hospital that was a little further out than I would have liked. So I had to stay overnight before the exam. And you can just imagine that just adds to the stress of things. Now to really top things off, I was going to be finding out my allocations for where I was going to be working in the UK. I wanted to stay in and around London, and this is something which has always been notoriously hard to do. So I was definitely nervous. Doubts started creeping in my mind. You start asking yourself things like whether you're good enough. But eventually you just have to try to block out that noise, because it doesn't really help you with what's in front of you. And that night, I just remember having some of the worst sleep I've ever had. Like waking up to find out my allocations and then being shipped off to a place I didn't want to go to. My game plan was to not check my allocations until after the exam so that if there was any sort of bad news, it wouldn't throw me off. Fast forward to the morning, I'm feeling pretty nervous as it already is for the practical exam, but I just had to get on with it. The exam itself was pretty hard and it took ages, but I'm just glad it was done. So I was over the moon to find out that I would be staying in London. And so now, in my mind, there was only one thing left, the written exam. So we had a few days between the two exams, but after all that stress, I just felt really burnt out. I didn't want to sit at my desk to do more questions. All I wanted to do was just relax. So the day of the exam came, and I felt pretty nervous going into the exam, waiting outside. But as I sat down and started doing the questions, that sort of fear or worry and anxiety started to go away. And before you know it, I was done. When I walked out of the exam hall, I just felt this big weight off my shoulders. I was finally done. To celebrate, I had a trip planned to Paris. I wanted to get out of London. I wanted to see new things, eat new things, try new things. Paris is a place that always has a special place in my heart, not just for the romanticized aspects that you see in movies, but also because my family spent some time living there. So to be able to enjoy the city without having things like the exam or things like that in my mind was super liberating. I'm back in London now, and all we have to do is wait and see if I passed.